It's that time again, Tim. How are you doing?
Good. Ready to do this.
Again, for the second time in a row. Oh, and we got a better orientation with the couch.
Yes, we do.
We got to make
comfy.
sure to take a picture of it because I kind of like it. We've turned the sectional couch I have in a weird way so that me and Tim both have an armrest, but yet we're leaning toward the microphone. It looks kind of funky, but you know what? Sue me.
It's comfy.
It's comfy. It's comfy. And now we don't have a table blocking our because last episode I was leaned away and I was the quiet one for once. So yeah, it was rather awkward. So yeah. Anything new in your life, Tim? Anything crazy? Anything?
Not much.
No, not much. Yeah, still just still here, getting ready for some Love and Thunder again.
Yep.
Do you have any announcements? Oh, I remember what I was going to say last time. So the goal, I think, for episodes in general, we record on Wednesdays and we post Thursday night, Friday. So for sure, when you wake up on Friday, folks, you will have your episode. Well, with that being said, hello, everyone. Welcome to Hear Me Out Pitch. We really should do that at the beginning.
We really should.
We got to figure out like a better outro and intro and whatever. And hope y'all like my little clicky clack. But yeah, welcome to Hear Me Out. Well, yeah, Hear Me Out Pitch. Almost forgot the name of our podcast. That's not good.
Would have been embarrassing.
It would. For those of you listening, my name is Willem.
I'm Tim.
And yeah, this is what we do. We come in, we watch movies. We do not review movies. We will tell you if we don't like them. We really will. Go back to the last episode. We really let Love and Thunder have it last time. Or at least I did.
Yeah,
Tim just
well-
looked at me like a monster. Like, you monster. I'm just kidding. He was there too, kicking it on the floor. And we have to go and do it again one more time because, again, this is the movie that made me want to do this podcast a year ago. And a year ago, I did not know Tim. And throughout this past year, got to know each other, became buds, became neighbors, and now we do this podcast. So, yep. So today is my turn. It's my turn to do my pitch on Love and Thunder, the one that's been stewing up in my mind for a long time. So with that being said, I think we are good to press go, and we're gonna see where this goes.
On with the show.
On with the show again. Oh, maybe I should have waited. It's fine. We're just gonna have it on mute, and we're gonna talk.
It's all good. Yeah, let's do this.
We'll go. There we go. Okay. The thing is, though, it's gonna be really awkward having this in the background because I completely took away the beginning.
Did you?
I did.
All the way, huh?
Gore. I loved the beginning. I think the scene with Gore is amazing. But again, I have a problem with how the tone shifted. Because that was the topic of last time is how the tone kept going from very serious to very silly. And again, very powerful. You know, we've been through it. How I want to do this movie is I'm going to do a lot of rearranging and and I would agree with you, no Korg narrating. Maybe at the end, there was part of the things I was thinking about, maybe Korg did it, but no. I'm going to kind of do, I was thinking more of Into the Spider-Verse kind of introduction, and how I kind of had it planned. Well, maybe I shouldn't talk about the outline in general and just kind of take you all on this journey. So, my beginning of the movie, screen is black, and we just hear one word uttered by Thor, mighty. And he kind of chuckles. What does it mean to be mighty? My whole life I've been called the mighty Thor. Now, what does that mean? And he's like, my life with Earth he's like, everything has changed when I crash land on Earth. And we get that recap kind of that Korg showed us. Shows the first movie, getting banished. You know, all these things. Thor is giving us his own summary of his life. I felt like Korg was just way too silly introducing the beginning. So basically, that intro that we see with Thor, after this scene with Korg, no, with Gore. Thank you. That's too many ors. Thor, Korg, and Gore. It's just a lot of ors. Please, sir, can I have some ore? Please, no, not anymore in this movie. We don't need any more ores.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So, Thor gives us his life story. You know, talks about, I became an inventor, went away, fell in love with Jane Foster, and that one I really want there to be like a pause. You know, he's like, I came to Earth, met Jane Foster, and there's like this awkward pause. And like he sighs, became an Avenger, and all this stuff. Like we always like see him come back to, he's like, you know, fought Ultron, saw Jane, like, you know, fought a demonic robot, like, and give us that arrogant Thor that we've seen throughout. Like, fought a demonic robot, captured the Infinity Stones, saw Jane Foster again. Like, again, just the sigh, just the, every time Jane's brought up, just, I didn't aim for the head, shows him doing, the snap happens, kind of let myself go, and like all these things he's like telling us in his own Thor way. You know, not too silly, but not too serious. Just that kind of way Thor explains stuff. Because we saw how hung up he was on Jane in Endgame. Yeah. Like he was explaining it, and he really did stop for a second, and we did see him kind of hesitate seeing Jane. He didn't want to see Jane when he was that low. He did go see his mommy. Actually, no. His mom came to him. The point is, the introduction is I want Thor to be the one introducing himself. Thor's the one telling his story, talks about joining the Guardians, becoming the warrior, getting back into shape. We can see all that. So Thor introduces, and at the end of his introduction, he says, I'm just waiting for, because then I kind of like the idea of him having this peace and him being a warrior, him kind of stop being a warrior. And in the end, he just says, I just want to find a reason to fight again. You know, stuff like that. Because why does he need to fight? And the biggest threat's been laid to waste. He doesn't really mind it. He's with the Guardians, but really he just kind of watches them and whatever. Part of me kind of didn't want them to be with the Guardians, but he did start with the Guardians, so I wanted to keep the continuity.
Yeah. Well, and he was with the Guardians at the end of
Endgame. Yeah, and so that's why I was debating on having them not be together at the beginning, but whatever. So it kind of goes off and it shows that temple with the glass temple, the very fragile temple, and I would want to see the gods of that earth, that world, worried about an invasion, that something's going on, you know, and then that king comes in and the gods are kind of dicks to him. I really want that. I would really want to see kind of how cruel some gods can be, because they come in and, you know, they come in and all the alien race come in and say, what shall we do? And he's like, oh, you handle it. And then it shows them leaving and going to find the Guardians, who said, thank you for coming. Where's the mighty Thor? You know, they're like wanting Thor. And, you know, they're like, okay, we'll go get Thor. And I kind of like the idea of him really being like, I don't want to do anything and just want to rest. And they get Thor. And they said, you know, the gods are worried. Can you come and talk to them? Because the other gods do not want to talk to anyone else. You know, they're like, we hear that the Thunderer is here. Please go get him. Blah, blah, blah. They go grab Thor. They come and talk to him. The gods are like, something is coming. Something's been happening. We've heard other gods being slain, but we don't know from what. And Thor's like, it's nothing to worry about. You know, that arrogant Thor. Again, he's like, it's nothing us gods don't have to worry about. Because again, he is kind of mighty. He has stopped that, and he's getting kind of tired. But so with the point being, I kind of had your kind of thoughts of how we don't really see Gore, but stuff's happening to him. So I would want the beginning, those shadow creatures are the things that are attacking that temple. They're distracting him. And Thor goes in and he's fighting them. They're going, and he's like, okay, this is an actual fight. Calls his axe, and he's like, they feel that something's going on. They're laying waste. The Guardians are pleading for Thor for help. Thor starts helping. They do the whole fight scene, and they kind of can get a little extreme. But I didn't want it to be all silly. I want it to be like a pretty good fight of the Guardians and Thor working together. Because we could have get some awesome fight scenes if they worked together, like how we got in Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
So we get an awesome fight scene, and they defeat all of them. They celebrate, but it also seemed like all the creatures just vanished. And they're like, oh, that's weird. And the king is like, Thor, come quick. And all their gods are butchered.
Okay.
Okay.
I see where you're going with this.
So again, it was like, because they wanted to make it a big deal, but I also want there to be gods, because this is kind of a big issue. So they are butchered, and of course it's PG-13, but we can see the aftermath of and now Thor's going, whoa, and he notices a few cuts and goes, I think I know what did this, and he gets a little nervous. And all of a sudden, they're like, and he goes, I need you to look up gods. Goes up to the Guardian and say, I need you to look up gods being killed. I need you to look up distress calls of God. Because, these are the Guardians. They have technology. He's like, look in your little doodad of, look in your oracle, type thing. Show us if any of gods have been killed. And sure enough, throughout, centuries, because then Thor's already known about some getting killed. But recently, there's been even more happening, and Thor's like, okay, something's going on. Sure enough, we see all these things, and all of a sudden we see the big white god dead. And Thor, that big one, the body that he found, the big one that's like, oh, that's blah, blah, blah. He's a very friendly god, friendliest one you ever meet. Thor sees that and goes, oh no. And he is like, all right, something's going on. And the Guardians are like, hey, this is kind of God stuff. And these are other distress calls that we're getting. You do your God thing, we'll go our own way. And Thor's like, thank you, friends, for everything. You're right, this is God business. Or I was thinking they wanted to help, and Thor goes, strictly God business. He's kind of pulling the God card right now, and he's like, I got it. But I feel like it would make more sense if the Guardians kind of went, yeah, you know what, you got this. So either way, take your pick of how you want that to go. Because they're both kind of stubborn people. Star-Lord's pretty stubborn, Thor's pretty stubborn. So I feel like either way, you can even get a mix of both and be like, they're like, we'll go your own way because this is God stuff. And Thor's like, absolutely, God stuff. Absolutely. This is what it's needed. Yeah, we'll definitely be going our way. Yeah, no, you weak little Guardians couldn't even do a scratch against gods. Have that little kind of humor. Okay? Have that little banter between Star-Lord and Thor. Because I feel like they always were kind of butting heads to some degree. They did become friends, but I also feel like sometimes they're like, so I feel like
still be a little bit of a rivalry.
So I feel like this would have been the perfect way for them to be like, all right, peace be with you, whatever. And Korg's like, all right, let's do this. Let's go fight some gods. And they're like, but Korg's not a god. Yeah, it's okay. He's like, I like Korg. In short, he's like, no, Korg comes with me. And they go to find that monster, and I feel like that would have been a crazy thing. That would have been where we find Lady Sif, because I feel like that would still make sense, especially if this god was friendly with Thor. Then maybe Lady Sif would have been there trying to stop it. And again, I was so annoyed with how they did Lady Sif.
I agree.
Absolutely, just freaked out that how silly it was. He sees Sif. He's like, is that who I think it is? And she could be crawling. I need something like movement. And Thor sees this carnage. This god is laying there. He's completely shocked because it was a good friend. Korg can ask the question, who is this guy? And he can say his name, the friendliest god you'll ever know. He may look big and scary, but he was so friendly. You should hear him tell a story sometime. And then Korg Korg does what he always does. Well, I don't think he'll be telling any stories anymore. Just that way he cuts it. And you're like, oh, and then he sees Lady Sif. And he hasn't seen Sif in forever. This is a woman, again, if you look at the old mythology, Sif is Thor's wife.
Yeah.
So I've always been like, they should have had at least a good connection. So for him to see Sif, the last one of his friends, he goes, and he is like, no, 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 not again. And you can see the old broken Thor from the other movies kind of give out, like, and he's like, and he runs to her, and she wakes up and she sees him, Thor, and just like, am I in Valhalla? Because she doesn't know where he's been. Is this Valhalla? He's like, no, it's real, it's real. And she starts crying. Where have you been? Like, just like, we needed a more tender moment of this.
I can agree. I think, like you said, in the actual mythology, Sif and Thor are married. Whether or not they have a good relationship being married is a totally other story. But I think keeping that would have been great. And I also feel like, yeah, having their relationship in these movies be a little bit more. Maybe it didn't have to be romantic, but at least more. Even more like their siblings.
Yeah.
Right?
Or even
more of a connection.
Yeah, just a connection of some sort. Because one of them, in my opinion, Sif probably loved Thor, and I think not Love and Thunder, sorry. The Dark World, they kind of showed that Sif had a little grudge against Jane Foster. Because he's a god, she's a human, she might think he's... Anyway, the point being, there was a way bigger connection for this. So with that being said, Sif needs medical attention. Sif needs to be brought home. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna get you home. She's like, there's no Asgard. And he's like, I know, but there is home. And, shoots the bolt down, summons the Bifrost, and I'm not gonna call it Love and Thunder. I didn't think of a name, but I don't want to go with Love and Thunder, but opening credit. That's when the credits roll. Mm-hmm. This is going to be like kind of a serious movie. We don't know what's going on, and everyone's probably like, oh my gosh, we haven't seen the villain yet. That's okay. Because I kind of like the idea that he's, being serious. Because this is going to take this is the first 10 minutes. So we've already set up something big. Something's going down. And I want to make it clear really quick. That glass temple did not get destroyed by Thor. If anything, it was Gore in my version. Agreed. They come up like, God, like Thor, our gods. And the temple, Thor looks, the temple is falling and cracked. Thor flies over and they are massacred. That was so important because they just dropped a pin in it. Like, our gods have been killed. And it's like, your gods have been killed and you're that calm about it? Are you kidding me? Like, we should have seen a better reaction. We need to see more aftermath. So, introduction. Then we hear the screen goes black and we hear Jane Foster, and she said, my mother had cancer. And it shows us the scene of her mother having cancer and going through that very, very similar scene of her growing with her mom and her mom talking to her. And she's like, Jane's narrating, and it was the hardest thing in my life. And it made me want to learn to solve problems. Later on, I realized I wanted to study space more than the human brain, but isn't that kind of what the brain is? It's just billions and billions of reactions, just like oh my gosh, the universe. That's the word. Thank you. And she's going off, and it shows her mom dying. Talks more about how she wanted to become it. She became well known, and then I met, and she said, and everything for me was science. And then I met the space Viking, and bam, she gets a little thing, and we see her side of the love story. I fell in love with him. We became closer than ever, and he chose me for a while, and it was wonderful. And it shows them dating, shows them loving each other, and they're going around and showing a relationship, and he even made me a promise. And it shows him and Thor sitting down together, and Thor's like, you mean the world to me, and I will protect you. And if I'm not here, and he puts Mjolnir in front of her, and he's like, grab it. And she puts her hand around it and says, and I promise you that if I'm not here, Mjolnir will help you too. That is my oath. And she's like, "Oh, you're so sweet," and like, "Thank you." And she's like, "Thank you, Thor." Gives him a kiss. She's like, "Thank you, Mjolnir." Like, just kind of lovingly taps it. But I'm not saying this is gonna be like anything like that. But just that cute little like thing you do when you're being all lovey-dovey with each other, and he puts Mjolnir down, and then the emblem of Odin shines. And in the comics, one of my favorite stories of the comics, and this is I kind of mentioned it last week. There was that story when Asgard was destroyed, and Civil War had happened. All that had just passed. Thor had been brought back to life. So this weird thing was, I won't go too far into it. Never mind. But the point being, Captain America had died after the events of Civil War. Spoilers for the comic. It's over a decade and a half. If you haven't read it, sorry. Captain America died at the end of it. Got assassinated. But with that being said, Thor made Captain America a vow with Mjolnir, and he was actually able to call his spirit and talk to him at his grave. And it was one of my yeah. And Captain's sitting there in this blackened red and white shroud, and he's sitting there, and he goes, "How is Valhalla treating you?" And he's like, "I wasn't a believer of Valhalla. I'm in a different place, but I'm at peace." And he's like, and Thor's like tearing up. He's like, "I miss you, Steve Rogers. You were a human who I could at least talk to and relate with being out of place." And it was very sweet. I really liked that. And I felt like that was a connection they could have had. They could have made that. So anyway, Jane Foster said, and, he made a promise to me. And then she kind of gets mad and he disappeared. And she goes, and over time, after that promise, he went away and he was gone. And then after an incident, I was gone. And it's confirmed that she was part of the blip. Because it was, and I'm fairly certain during Endgame, we see them going through people, and Jane Foster is someone that blipped.
If I remember right, yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I am like 90% sure. So, he disappeared. So that's another thing. Thor probably know that Jane was gone. And then I came back like everyone else. Because I feel like the blip just got lost so much. And that's what bugs me in these modern movies, is the blip is just this afterthought. So.
According to Google, It's unknown whether or not Jane Foster blipped. But it does depict her as alive during the blip. The only reason to think she blipped is an old Endgame script that included her in the faces of the blipped.
Okay.
So I guess. But here's another, I guess, because that's MCU fandom.com. So you can't really exactly, you can't believe everything said there. But down here I guess this is just a Wikipedia page, but it does say that Clint's family, Eric Selvig, Shuri, and Jane Foster are confirmed to have been blipped.
All right. Okay, that's what I thought. Take it with a grain of salt. But in my movie, she did disappear. And at that time of the blip, she probably did. Anyway, Thor disappeared, and she disappeared. Thor came back, went on his own adventure, because how could he face Jane anyway? And just like with the rest of the other half of the universe, I came back. And a part of me wishes I didn't. Because not a few months after that, I got to share another thing with my mother, cancer. And then we get that scene of her getting the chemotherapy, and she's just frustrated. Kat comes, talks to her. Not Kat, that's from a different show.
I know what show you're talking about.
Her friend. Oh, no.
What is her name?
I can't remember her name. Her friend. Oh, my gosh. I had it written down, too. Did I? I did not. But I did like that scene of them talking, and she's like, "You need to, rest, relax. Doesn't matter how smart you are, but you need to go through this like everyone else." And she's like, I know. I just feel like I can find something. I'm Jane Foster. And, she's done a lot. She's got Nobel Prizes, all these things. She goes, "Well, what about space Viking magic?" She's like, "I'm not playing that card. I don't even know where he is. I haven't seen him in so long." they're talking and, but there's, when she mentions him, she like has it ringing and she's like, and everyone mistakes it as a headache. Just a ring kind of keeps happening. And she's like, every time they mention the space pirate, she's like, ooh, a ring. And we can hear it as the audience. She's like, ah. And then it shows her trying to find stuff, the blood work, and she sees oh my gosh, I can't remember their names. I should have written this down. And the doctor's like, if you need anything, Jane, please let me know. And again, and now she's reading stuff because again, she keeps having this eerie feeling. She's reading about Mjolnir, and again, the ringing in her ear. And then we see her go to New Asgard, and we see how New Asgard's doing. And they're pretty isolated. I want to keep it very similar to the scene in Endgame. I really like that layout. I feel like maybe they've grown a little more, but they're still again, these are Asgardians. They are not human. They live longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not want to see Infinity Gauntlet cone or whatever that was. My God.
Infinity Gauntlet ice cream cone.
Yeah, because again,
it's not a theme park.
It's not a theme park. It's not a theme park.
This is an entire civilization condensed down to a village. And this civilization, I touched on it last week, but this civilization is not about being fun and being a part of Earth, right? No, they are Asgard.
Yeah.
They are a people, should be somewhere else. They should be in Asgard, the place Asgard that was destroyed, right? And I feel like they're always going to be lamenting that loss of their home. And now that has been destroyed, I feel like they'd be really, really skeptical.
Exactly.
And reluctant to let people come in and visit.
They don't fit on Earth.
No.
They are different, and they want to kind of keep they've lost so many people. Because again, Asgard blew up. Half of them were killed by Thanos. And I've always wondered, did half of them disappear even more? Or because Thanos killed half of them, was he like... Because again...
Well, it would have been... He snapped away half of life.
But he can think... I feel like with the Infinity Gauntlet, his mind was so amazing. And maybe he was like, I'll be fair to those who I've already halved. I don't know. But the thing is, and even if they did get half, that's still more. Because the survivors got cut in half. And then those survivors got cut in half for 5 years. And now they're all back. They're all probably getting together. Probably even more closed off than ever. So when Jane, appears in a little tiny airport, because again, they're very isolated, but they do allow some flights because some Asgardians want to go around.
Right.
They're slowly making connections. Who is standing there to greet her but King Valkyrie? She's like, Jane Foster, I've heard about you quite a time. Everyone talked about you for a while. What brings you to New Asgard? Because she's kind of skeptical, like, why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, if you're looking for him, he's long gone. And I don't know if... Yeah, and she's like, I don't think you and him are going to ever get back together. Like, she's like... So, but she kind of sees that Jane's kind of not looking so good. And she goes, you okay? And Jane kind of explains her situation about having stage 4 cancer, folks. Again, this is not a laughing matter. Gosh, sorry. We've already ranted, Tim. Don't let me rant.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
So with that being said, she kind of asks like, so how is New Asgard? What do you guys do how have you guys, she's like, I see you guys got an airport and it's growing. She goes, yeah, when you have rare textiles and clothing and very ancient magical mead that you make, that you're only place in the world that makes it, you could gain quite a bit of money. So there you go. Source of income of how they grow.
Right.
Mead, textiles, they probably have some magic. That's where I would probably have the goats. Because they're huge.
They are huge.
So she's like, it took us a while to get those back up. And then you can hear a few goats scream,
Okay. I like it.
So, because their goats are probably huge. Anyway, yeah, they were not given by that weird random blue people universe. Why would they have goats? She goes, actually, I'm not here to see him. I'm not, and she doesn't even want to say his name. I'm like, just don't. It's fine. She wants to see. She's like, I want to see Mjolnir, if that's okay. She goes, you know what happened to it, right? She's like, I heard it's in pieces, and that's why you guys started your civilization here. But how could it be in pieces? She's like, come with me. She's like, haven't you guys moved it? And Valkyrie just laughs. She's like, no, we haven't moved it. And you go and you see the little altar, you see the guards, you know, kind of like the soldiers, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier kind of thing. They just randomly have a watch for it because it's Mjolnir. And, you know, she's talking to Valkyrie, and Valkyrie goes, so you came all this way because you had a feeling about seeing a broken hammer. And Jane Foster's like, I can't explain it either. Makes no sense in my mind. But everything I've read, everything I've done, this ringing in my head, it's led me here. And now I don't know why. And she's like, this hammer saved me so many times. And Thor always told me it would never break. And I can't believe it broke. And then she kind of tears up. She goes, you know, he promised that Mjolnir would help me if he wasn't here. But now he's gone. And the hammer are gone. And she kind of just starts sobbing. So what am I supposed to do without both of them? And there we see the flashes, and Valkyrie looks over, and clouds start forming. Bam! Lightning strikes, and Jane is like crying on the altar. Lightning comes down. Flashes. Valkyrie is blown back. Jane! And the mighty Thor stands there.
I like it. I imagine, you know, lightning strikes. King Valkyrie is thrown back, right? Yells Jane, like you
Pulls
said.
out her spear, you know.
And starts running, and then Jane gets up, and she's got the cape and the armor, and she's got the hammer in hand, and no helmet yet. Because I want to see her face.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see her face and her reaction as she realizes, oh my gosh.
So the only reason why I would want the helmet on her is because I don't want the whole you're taking off the magic what's it called? The nanotech thing that they have such a fad now.
Yeah.
So she appears, she has the helmet. Because in Jane's head, that's what she would want is the helmet. So yeah. And then we hear Jane, you know, and Mighty Thor appears, and Jane goes, and that's how I became the Mighty Thor. And I want to see, you know, her going with Valkyrie. And she goes in, and she's like, and King Valkyrie has been an amazing teacher, and kind of chuckles. And it shows them going off to other things and fighting stuff, you know, doing things.
I like it.
You know, they're having their own adventures. Jane actually saves a few people, and people are like, Thor's back. And they go, why does Thor look so tiny? Thor got Mjolnir back. Like, it's coming up on the news, like, you know, Thor has returned. And like, because and people aren't getting many clips. Jane's really trying to hide it. And then some people are like, speculation. That's not Thor. And like all these things of like Lady Thor, all these things, blah, blah. And Jane's like watching the news. Why does it have to be Lady Thor? She's like, why do I have to be Thor? And Valkyrie goes, and she repeats the line, whoever holds this hammer, if he should be, actually, no. Why would she know?
She wouldn't.
Yeah, she wouldn't know it. She wouldn't know it. I
think maybe no, because Sif is with Thor at the moment.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say Sif could have said it, but anybody that would have been there would be dead at this point.
Yeah, anyone and the only person who really was there was Thor and Odin.
And Heimdall.
Part of me really wanted to. I don't even think Heimdall was there. I think he told Heimdall to get lost because he didn't want. Because I think Heimdall would have been. I think Heimdall was there and he was completely bamboozled. I'll have to watch Thor again. So with that being said, I want Jane Foster to have been Thor for longer, and she's actually doing Thor things. Okay. She's saving people. She's becoming a hero. She's feeling great. We all think Jane's healed. when she is the mighty Thor, she is absolutely fine, just like in this movie. Okay, so she doesn't change back. Because why would she? Why would she
Right.
let go of Mjolnir? Mjolnir made a connection. And it kind of overrode the system because Mjolnir shattered. I do think the promise is still there, but to some way, he repaired it. The hammer repaired itself because Thor and her's connection was so strong. So again, I really wanted there to be her just like, he's gone, the hammer's gone. What else do I have? And Mjolnir and the promise of Mjolnir's like, and comes down and makes her the mighty Thor.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
And I know that we probably could be like, well, is she worthy? And I'm like, you know what?
Yeah,
We'll
probably.
I feel like in the comics, she is worthy. And I feel like Jane is worthy. I don't know. You can play with that as you will.
I
Right,
mean,
Kings?
think about it this way, right? She already wielded one of the most powerful objects in the universe.
Yeah, she had
right? The reality stone.
the reality stone. So yeah, anyway, so with that, we don't need to go too far into that, but whether you can say she's worthy or it's strictly the promise, you can do that. Because Thor has become to some way the Allfather to some degree, but also he was not even close. Odin wouldn't have been dead at that point. But the point being, Thor made a promise and Mjolnir sealed the promise. And when Jane finally came to him, to the hammer, it was able to come back because it had a promise to fulfill. So,
I like it.
and again, this is only supposed to be like, we're supposed to be not too far in.
20 minutes into the movie.
Yeah,
maybe?
20, 25. So, we have the mighty Thor. We've seen her. She's become Thor, whatever. Thor's not going to know this. Why on earth would he know about stuff on Earth? The universe is so big to Thor. Why does he care what's going on in Midgard? So he doesn't really care.
He's hanging out with
The Guardians. So
right?
it's
They're
like,
not
yeah.
worrying about Earth.
So, but
They got
now,
the Avengers.
after this, we get like maybe 6 months later, whatever. I don't know. But just a couple months or even a year have gone by. Take your pick with it. But time has gone. She's been Thor. Earth knows that there's a lady Thor. Anyway, so that being said, we get to New Asgard, and all of a sudden Bifrost appears. Bam, Korg, Thor, and Lady Sif. He's holding her. He's like, somebody get some help, and everyone, Thor, Thor, Thor. And then, they rush in. They get Lady Sif. Valkyrie's coming in. He goes, oh, so the only way you come is when you bring us broken people? All right, I like that. Never coming to say hi. It's been a while. And she kind of reprimands him like, well, and he's like, and Thor turns around. I gave you reign of king. I don't need to hear this from you. Like, whatever. And she goes, yeah, and you should visit your king. So how about we see some kneeling, like some sassiness from her? Like, okay, so where's the gratitude? And Thor like,
Valkyrie style.
And Thor's like, you're right, bows. He's like, Almighty King of New Asgard, it is wonderful to see you, and I pledge my, my fealty to thee. Like, all that stuff. He's proper. And she's like, okay, now get off your knees. You're being weird. And like makes fun of him. And they go about their way.
I like it.
We get that dynamic. And Thor looks around, looks amazing. Looks good. And again, they've grown a little more in the past couple of years. They're getting maybe a little more people. Like, I see you're letting more outsiders in. She goes, yeah, we've had quite a few people visit because of recent things. And he goes, what recent things? And she goes, well, what if I'll let you see later on. He goes, huh. So they go in and they cut to Sif being in a medical wing. They're seeing her. It's like, we've stabilized her. She's doing great. You should go talk to her. She's okay to talk to now. He walks in, sees Sif, and he goes, Sif, what happened? Like, fine, because she had passed out, Like, that's why it was so drastic. Like, her arm was gone. I really did. I kind of was like, I kind of like her arm being gone because Sif is a mighty warrior. Because that's what Gore would do. And, he's talking to her, and he's like, what happened? What killed him? And she's like, the Necro Sword. And he's like, I knew it. And Valkyrie goes, the Necro Sword? Like, they all know what is going on. And they go, yeah, the god killer's out there. And she's like, so who's the new wielder? She goes, I didn't see his face. He wouldn't say his name, but he is angry and he is cruel and he is coming. She goes, what do you mean? And she goes, he's hunting down gods. And, they kind of reminisce about their friend, the big god. And they kind of talk about it. And I want her to, she goes, she had been following lead. She'd been traveling, after Asgard fell. I couldn't come home because she'd already been traveling. She goes, after Asgard fell, I was going around. I found refuge with that god, and he had been, he told wonderful stories, and we get to see the god kind of like, they're both chuckling at like a story he's telling. Because again, I'm pretty sure Thor said that in the movie. I don't know. I just really like to show how big and friendly this god was.
Like a teddy bear.
Yeah, and then one day, they're talking, and the shadow creatures come that we've seen before. They're attacking, and then Sif's fighting them, and then looks up, and there's just a figure on top of the big guy, and just hood down, stabs him through, jumps down, carves down his neck, and he falls. And Sif goes and fights him, doesn't see his face. He vanishes at one swing, and he comes up and cuts her arm off. And we just hear like a very quiet voice from the figure going, find me Odin, son. And gone. And you're like, whoa, man, what's going on?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know that's kind of like, oh my gosh, it's very lucky Thor found Sif there, and that's kind of the point, is Gorr wasn't going for the big guy. He was trying to get to Thor. And we'll kind of get to that later on. And she's like, I'm very glad you found me. It was extremely lucky. And of course, I'm just going to chop that up to writing. I don't really care. Just lucky, whatever. And that's kind of when the realization is like, well, he didn't attack me when I was there. So what did he want to accomplish there? And that's when we hear screaming.
Okay.
Okay. And then we hear the first scream, and then we cut to a child sleeping, and then we see another child disappear. And all of a sudden and more kids, and screamings get louder and louder. More kids are waking up. One little kid wakes up, he's looking around, and we hear like a growl, and then something leaps out, another scream. And we see all the parents start fighting. All these monsters are sitting there, and we see the kids are getting taken away. And all of a sudden, that's when, it cuts back to Thor, and he goes, I gotta go. And he's running out, and now we see the full-on chaos. There's all this fighting. And all of a sudden, Thor is watching. He's watching. And all of a sudden, he puts his hand out. Stormbreaker appears. He turns around. Bam! Him and Gorr are face to face. And Thor looks up, and he goes, the Necrosword. Screen goes to black. And we hear a voice. I had a daughter once. And then that's when we get the introduction. We see a man walking with his daughter in the desert. We see him, he says, and she loved to draw. Shows her drawing. Does the whole thing that we've seen the first movie at the beginning of the movie. Then walking through the desert. We get that whole same thing. I really love that. His daughter dies, buries her, finds the oasis. We've all been through this. We've all seen it. This is part 2. Nothing really changes from that scene. We now get the introduction to Gorr. We know his name.
We know why he does what he does.
And he goes, he gets the Necrosword, kills that god, makes the vow, this is my vow. God, all gods will die. Cuts it. He goes, and I have throughout history. And it shows a few Aztec gods that he's slain, gods that we have long. He's like, and gods that we don't even know of. It shows him being the god butcher. Like we see him, like it's going through cutscenes of him slashing gods open, sneaking, like just slaying ginormous gods, killing a celestial, floating in space. And I want to keep that infinity thing. It was infinity?
Eternity.
Eternity. Thank you. Oh. Gotta turn some notes. So yeah, I really want to make a point that Gore's been doing this a long time. Like a long time. And then we see him watching, he's like, I have attempted to reach Eternity's Gate many times. And it shows him like always like going to that place. It shows Eternity's temple closing, and he's like trying to cut it open. He's using all sorts of gods to like powers to do it. I want to do a total God of War moment. He's holding Apollo's head or something and shooting the blast, through it, like stuff like that. Like he's trying to get into Eternity, and he's like slowly trying to break down Eternity's gates. And he's finally like, and then I had one more thing I needed, the Bifrost. And it shows him finally like appearing and seeing Hela and all that stuff. And he was like, no, like just something along that. Like he just watched Asgard be destroyed, and he goes, well, there goes like, and he's worried that that's his chance. And he's like, and I thought that was it. And it shows him just killing more gods. And so I went to killing. And then one day the sword whispered to me that the Bifrost was, alive again. And that shows Thor, picking up the hammer, the hammer's being made. And Gore goes, oh. And then the blip happens. And Gore was also part of the blip.
Okay, so Gore was blipped, huh?
Because he's still a being.
He is, and he's technically alive. I like it.
Because that makes more sense of why he couldn't attack. So he could have been there watching the battle. And again, I do have a feeling that he can't really attack in sunlight. I feel like shadow is his big. I would really make a fact that sunlight really does a lot of things. And also, I don't feel like he could have fought Thanos' army, dealt with Thanos just to get an axe. That would have just been too much exposure for him. Because he's kind of just meant to handle with gods. And he lets things go as the way the worlds are. But my point being is he's been doing this a long time and trying to break down Eternity's gates. And the Bifrost was the last thing he needed. He'd been like cracking other things, and finally the Necrosword revealed to him that the Bifrost, like it always was whispering things and, always whispering of ingredients he needed, killing gods, using their powers, using their, I kind of wanted to see Poseidon's trident at one point. He's just like pointing Poseidon's trident and
using their weapons.
Yeah,
maybe as like extra keys to get to the gate itself.
Yeah, because there's so much that you need to use. Because it was like, oh, the Bifrost is the other thing. It's like, do you know how many gods there are? So, anyway, with that being said, so when he reappeared, he goes, I need to get the Bifrost. But, Gore's not perfect, and the Necrosword does take him, but the Bifrost can have him teleport all over the place. He shows his side of things, killing that one god and seeing Thor, and he watches Thor appear, and he goes, I have you now. So probably could be in a better place, but we got to have story, right? We got to have something. We got to build more. So with that being said, that's what led Thor bringing Sif to New Asgard. Then it cuts back and it shows Gore and him fighting, and they just go right to it. They're fighting, and Gore immediately just gets down to brass tacks. Give me the axe. Thor, oh, you want the axe? Oh, this thing also kills gods. Bam! And just throws it, and it hits the Necrosword, and he barely deflects it. flies out of his hand, and it caused Stormbreaker to also fly in different ways. So they both look at each other, run. Thor picks it up, but Gorr gets Necrosword first, disappears in the shadow, appears, grabs Thor right before he can really get a good hold of it, and he gets him. He's going to cut his hand off, and then bam, Mjolnir knocks him off. And Thor's like, Mjolnir? And he's all like excited because he's like, once again, Mjolnir's saving him before getting a fatal wound, like in Endgame. I really love that scene. Let me tell you.
I agree. That was a good scene.
And it goes back, and Thor, goes to call Mjolnir, and it looks like it's going back to Thor, and it veers, and then bam, we see the mighty Thor catch it, and she starts, doing her thing, calling lightning. She's killing all the beasts, blah blah blah, fighting very similar to how it does. I love the part where it breaks into pieces and then comes back, because Jane is a world-renowned physicist. Is that what it is? Astrophysicist. So I believe this woman, given her power of gods, she can manipulate things how she wants if she's thinking about all the individual pieces. Does that whole thing. Doing it, Gorr's getting kind of angry. And that's when he realizes he has to go and fall to his plan B. And that's when we see the cage come, and he goes, tell me when you're ready for the trade, and just disappears. And all the kids are gone. And Thor's like, I need it to be more soul crushing. Gorr is a man of few words. All they know of him is he kills gods, and he doesn't play nicely. He just gets down to brass. They have seen his handiwork, and he just got a hold of, a good chunk of Asgardian kids. There's probably not going to be that many, in my opinion. And there isn't that many in the movie. Anyway, so kids are gone. Not the Infinity Blade. Necrosword is now in play. They've seen Gorr. Kids are gone. He wants the hammer. Our heroes are now like, oh my. And Korg comes up. Isn't that your hammer? That's the hammer that pulled you off, right? Like, kind of do a little play on the joke from the third movie. I don't mind that. Again, I don't mind a few jokes every now and then, but I don't need and Thor turns, because he can't do it. He goes, who are you? Immediately gets angry, kind of. He's like, how did you bring Mjolnir back? Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. Gets all up in her face, and she goes, and how dare, and everyone's running. Sorry, this is the part that I wanted to make the point. It's like everyone's saying, Thor, what do we do? And it shows them running to Jane, because she has the title of Thor, and they're running to her, and they're like, Jane, Lord Valkyrie, what do we do? Thor, what do we do? And he goes, I'm Thor. Let's get this right. Kind of like the 007 thing in the. You haven't seen the newest movie. Great one. Everyone go watch it. And finally he's kind of getting in this person's face that, has his look, his hammer, and the Asgardians are starting to love this person a little more than him. And she goes, I thought you'd be way more happy to see me, and takes off the helmet. Jane? And then it cuts to the council room. They're all sitting there. They're all kind of sitting down. The parents are just sobbing, and, Valkyrie's trying to calm them. I know we've lost so much, and we will get through this. We've done this. We can do this. And some parents are like, I just got them back. Or some parents are like, we're feeling their pain. This isn't supposed to be like jokes, the whole like writing on the board. It's supposed to be, the Asgardians have gone through some pain because
they've lost their kids.
Yeah.
Like, just think about that for a second. Their kids, all of their kids are gone.
Some of them, it's 5 years, but after the blip, what do they call it after the blip? So the blip is when they came back.
The return or whatever.
Oh, wait, no. The snap was the initial thing, and the blip is when they came back.
The blip is the whole 5 years.
Okay. It hasn't been 5 years since they've all come back. So how does that, when you've done something for so long, when you, I don't know, we as humans, we generally are like, they've been gone for 5 years and I haven't seen them from 2. I haven't made up that change yet. I haven't got what I'm due of them being gone, So some of these parents have got their kids back. Some of them have returned. It's kind of like this whole crazy thing because the Asgard, and they've been through so much. And some of those little kids have been there since the beginning. Some of them could have been born. Some of them have been we need to feel the repercussions of what has happened to the Asgardians. For how much is what's happened to Thor in his life, the Asgardians have been through quite the ordeal in the past, 5+ years in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this needs to be a big deal. And Thor's kind of like, I don't know. And they're all kind of like, I don't know what. Thor's kind of like, I don't know what to do. Because everyone's looking at him, everyone's looking at Jane, everyone's looking at King Valkyrie. Like, what do we do? And finally, after like a few parents are getting mad, a few people have like one father gets in Thor's face. I really would want to imagine, like, he's like, we got ourselves a new Thor. Why are you here? Like, I want that to be kind of a thing. Is they're looking at the mighty Thor as his replacement. They're like, we have our hero now. Why are you here? You come back to drop off Lady Sif. You arrive. You brought this onto us once again. So what are you going to do to fix it or leave? I want there to be kind of this awkwardness. Because what did he do the whole blip? You sat in a cavern, you got drunk, you got fat, and then you left us. Yeah. I really don't think there should be like these good feelings toward Thor. They're kind of like,
I can agree with that.
He hasn't been that good to the Asgardians. It's like, you didn't do jack diddly squat. You were supposed to be king. You were a lazy king for 5 years. Valkyrie took up your slack, and he turns to Valkyrie for advice, and she kind of folds her arms like, Valkyrie does, like, I'm not
getting in on this.
I'm not getting in on this. Because in her mind, she kind of agrees, and he looks to Jane, and she all of a sudden kind of gets a little shadow too. And everyone's shift of anger is kind of turned because Jane felt abandoned. And he's like, tell me you're on my side at least. And she just scoffs and leaves the room. And we follow Jane.
I like it.
And she goes into the bathroom, kind of cries a little bit, looks in the mirror, and boom, changes. And we see that she's worse. Hair is falling out. She's not doing better. And she starts crying even more. It's just a lot. I really need this scene to have emotion. And, we see Jane crying, and then I want to transition to the kids. We hear her crying, and it's slowly like, we see her and it's going to do like an up transition. We see her outside the bathroom, and we transition to in the cage, like kind of a side swipe, and and the crying gets louder because all the kids are crying too. And then we're in the cage with the kids.
I like it.
Okay. I kind of like that tone because now we're trying to the kids because all the parents are worried. Everyone's mad at Thor. We transition to the kids and they're crying. And all of a sudden I am so sorry. Gore walks out and he goes, I can't stand children crying. And, they kind of expect him to be mean. He goes, don't worry, children. I'm not here to hurt you. I just need you. I need to fulfill my goal. And, the kids are kind of, why do you hate God so much? And he sits there and he goes, oh, I haven't been asked that before. Like, because really, who would ever, why would he ever give them the time of day? And he's like, I've never thought. And he just sits there and he goes, it's been so long. Why do I hate them? Oh, yes, they failed me. My daughter died in my arms. And then, not hours later, I found an oasis. I was blessed with this, and pulls it out, and you see all the kids just like it's something that kills them because they're little gods. And they've probably heard stories of this thing. You know, and he goes, and it whispers to me what I need to do. And none of you deserve it. And I hope you all keep that way. Or I'll have to come back. But please, children, no crying. I just need you until my goal is done. And one of the kids is like, Thor will stop you. And he goes, he's failed you before. Who says he won't do it again? And a little girl, and I really want it to be a little girl, the mighty Thor will stop you. And he looks all confused. And then we go back. And he goes, and, you know, I just wanted to hear that question kind of go, that look kind of confuse him. And then we transition, like kind of a transition to Jane. Just sitting there. And, you know, she's sitting there. She's like, all right, we need a plan. We need it now. Those kids need there. Those kids need us. We need a plan now. Everyone drop. Like, she's kind of like walking back into the room after everyone's getting, and everyone's like on their feet yelling at Thor at this point. They're finally letting him have it. And poor Thor is like, okay. Like, I need him like sitting there taking it. And he's starting to, like, you know, the Thor at the beginning of Endgame? Mm-hmm. He is just sitting there with the hammer. Not the hammer. He's sitting there he's holding it. And I also kind of want him holding Mjolnir too. Like, he's holding both. Like, he's just holding them as comfort. And Jane walks up, snatches Mjolnir out of his hand and points it at him. Where are we going? What are we doing? Show them that you still care. And Thor just sits there. We need to go to the gods. She goes, the gods? You go, yeah. We need to go to Omnipotent City. And then picks up Mjolnir and just boom. And they go. And it shows like this, it shows the glorious scene, shows them come around. Okay, and there's one thing, Tim, I am going to steal from you, and you'll see in a second, because I absolutely loved it. And I was like, you know, they land, and Jane, Valkyrie, and I just think Korg. Korg gets left. Because again, if Korg does come with them, he's dying. Okay? Yeah. If Korg comes, he's dying. They land in an Omnipotent City, and, you know, he looks around and goes, ladies, welcome to Omnipotent City. And Valkyrie goes, oh, I always heard about this place. Never was allowed to go as Valkyrie. This should be fun. And, you know, a few goddesses from another world walks by, and, you know, Valkyrie kind of turns her head. Definitely gonna love it here. Like, you know, because it's Valkyrie. It's Valkyrie. She is used to, they're kind of like Amazons. I really view Valkyries a lot like Amazonians. They just have this woman sisterhood strong, and they probably all have strong relationships. Some of them had relationships with each other. So, yeah, I honestly envisioned a few Amazons walking by, like some type of goddess like that. And Valkyrie's like, I like it here already. Like, feels a little more, like, just feels at home already. More at home. You know? Like, just something like that. Like, finally, like, Valkyrie's like, oh, I'm not on Earth with little earthlings. I'm with gods. I'm with beings that are just a little step up above, you know? And all these people are, you know, they see all these gods, and, you know, Thor just starts walking. And they're like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to the only person I can think of at the moment. And they're walking. And all of a sudden we see Hercules put his arm around him. He's like, Thor, look at you. Oh, your hair's gotten so long. Look at you. Is that a new hammer? Why does she have your hammer? Are you not worthy to hold me? Oh, like, just teasing. And he's like, may I try to hold it, ma'am? Like, walks up. He's like, ma'am, may I? And, like, trying to smooth her. She's wearing the helmet. He's like, lovely lady, may I please hold that? It must be heavy for you. And she just, and Hercules, bam, like, just drops, can't hold it, you know? And he's like, still can't hold it, you know? Just that proper, like, just that Hercules spine. He is, and I do imagine someone, like, as chiseled, but probably more power lifter kind of build, just huge.
It's almost like a smaller version of Hulk.
Yes. You know the actor they had, I wouldn't mind it being him. But again, I just need that connection. And anyway, Thor's like, Jane Foster, Hercules, Jane Foster. And she looks at him and goes, Mighty Thor. And he's like, fine. Oh, he says, that's going to be confusing. And she's like, we can just call you the Thunderer. I don't know. And he goes, oh, like just something like, again, everyone's kind of mad at him. He's like, oh. And he goes, Hercules, I'm looking for your father. And we hear a voice go, oh, well, if you really needed me so bad. And he's like, and why does and he goes and he just kind of teases him. And of course, Thunder's always chasing lightning, like something like that. And he turns around, and for a split second, we turn. And I really loved what you imagined, turns, and we kind of see a fuzzy image
of
Odin for a second, like him walking toward from a bright light. And we think it's like it looks just like Odin. We even see an eye patch, and he gets closer, and bam, a nice, Russell Crowe who kind of worked out, kind of got in shape, doesn't need to wear the breastplate, just wears a toga roll and just looks all powerful. And he goes, why does my, and I'm just going to say nephew, why does my dear, quote, nephew, he even teases it, why does my nephew want to be here so much? And he goes, and I just want them to be some small talk, he's like, well, I can't turn to my father, so... And he goes, I know, and I miss him dearly. I really wish that some of the gods were just bros.
Yeah. I agree.
And it's kind of retconning how they kind of didn't do their own thing, but I just wouldn't have minded, Odin visit Omnipotent City. Because I didn't like the vibe they had there of, there, of course, were some arrogant gods, but this is just a place for gods to dwell. He goes, oh my gosh, not Odin. Zeus, the Necrosword's owner, has...
surfaced.
The god butcher is on the rise, and Zeus is like, oh, we know, we've known for a while. And he's like, you've known? Yes, of course we've known. And why haven't you done anything? Thor, we don't dwell in other businesses of gods. It's not the way we work. Gods do not interfere in other gods' business. That is the simple way of things. He goes, well, what about when he killed Apollo? He's like, well, it was, just we see that gods fear this weapon. Just asking questions. We need help. 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 And, so I just want them to be bickering back and forth. And Zeus is kind of like, look, we will send someone to help you find and Hercules is like, I'll help father, I'll help them get, their children back. And Zeus is like, no, son, you're not going to go help. It's not a big deal. And then we get a Bob god, you said, I kind of liked how that kind of worked, but I didn't really want the scene to be too big. I wanted them to see all the gods. They have this powerful scene. He's like, gods do not interfere. And he's like, but shouldn't we help those lesser than us? And, Zeus is kind of there's this kind of balance. When do gods interfere? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I've seen many good gods and many bad. And Thor is like, I've seen many good gods, many bad gods. But this butcher doesn't care. He's just going through and killing and killing and killing. Because you're right. And that's why we don't bring him here. And then we just have this laugh just go through the halls. And he goes, oh, my sword is hungry. And we just see the shadow monsters come in.
Huh.
I really thought Gore was going to be coming in. And we see Hercules go, Father, get out of here. Because I kind of wanted to play that when humans lose their belief in certain gods, they're not as strong as they were. The Greek pantheon lost control of the world and they became weaker. I didn't want this to be a big thing. I really wanted it to be just a simple thing of oh, there's gods. And I just wanted this to be an excuse for Gore to butcher. Okay.
I like it.
So we see the gods we see all these sort of gods from the other planets, whatever. We see a few of the gods of old that we know, and they are fighting, and they are kind of like, oh, they're doing a pretty good job because these are just little simple creatures. And then we're going to see Gorr go off, and we see him slicing through gods like they're paper. You know, all these gods are like fighting the shadow monsters, and Gorr is disappearing in and out, cutting, slashing. We can see just many gods fall. And he gets to Hercules, and Hercules and Thor are working together, and I really wanted that to happen. Just Gorr and Hercules, just boom, boom, boom. They're fighting, beating the crap out of him.
Kind of, you know, in the same way that Thor and Cap were fighting together.
Yeah. You know, they're kind of doing stuff. They're just going and they're fighting him. And he's just jumping in the shadows because shadows have just dwelled over Omnipotent City. Omnipotent City is falling to the butcher. We see lesser gods just being killed by that. And, you know, Thor and Hercules are fighting, and Thor gets a hammer and he throws it. Oh, no, he doesn't want to throw it. Jane throws Mjolnir at him, and all of a sudden we see Gorr go into the shadows and put a child in front of it. And then all of a sudden we see all the kids come out of the shadow with creatures holding them. And he goes, enough! Give me the axe. There doesn't need to be any bloodshed, and I do not need these children's blood on my hands. You know, and Zeus is sitting there. And we see Zeus kind of go ham, and he was wrecking monsters. And Zeus is like, how dare you come into the realm of the gods? And Gorr looks at him and goes, Zeus. Huh. And he's just so excited because he's like, Zeus, one of the most selfish gods. How much did you love your wife? Like, he just drops all these things throughout Zeus's history. Just, how good of a father really are you? And like Hercules, like, don't you dare talk to my father that way. And he goes, really? Is he a good father though? How many half siblings do you have? And just like all these things. He's like, your father let down the world. Selfish, arrogant, all of you, like just making a point. He's like, why am I so bad? How are you any different? All of them can't say anything. Because what do you say?
You can't.
He's like,
you can't say anything.
You look down on us. You know, I really want that to be the drive, as Gorr is just making that point. You look down on those, you squish us underneath your boot. You have no quarrel with stepping on those beneath you. And I really want that to make a comeback to what Loki says to Nick Fury in Avengers. You know, you plant, like when he says an ant has no quarrel with a boot or something like that, you know, Loki is one of those gods.
Yeah.
Was. He saw humans as lesser. He didn't care. The gods are kind of shrugged. A lot of them are pretty dead. You know, Omnipotent City has fallen. The safe haven of the gods is gone. You know, he followed Thor, whatever. And he turns to Thor and he just says, I want to thank you so much for bringing me here. And he says, but again, I can butcher gods all day, but I need that. And he's pointing at Stormbreaker. And Hercules is getting pretty mad. And Hercules kind of sneaks up, grabs him, and starts pounding him. He disappears, and Hercules is above empty space, and Gorr appears, and he's about to stab him through, and we hear a stab. Camera goes to Hercules' face, and Zeus hopped in the way.
You killed Zeus instead of Bob, huh? Okay.
And because Zeus had to prove in his final act that he wasn't as selfish as Gorr said. And Gorr just sits there and turns it, and Zeus goes on his knees, and Zeus says, I'm not as bad as a father as you say. And Gorr goes, well, pity, because your son's next. And just gone. And Zeus just disappears. Thor screams throws Stormbreaker, and he catches it. And we're like, oh no. And he goes, thank you for the trade. You can have your kids back. And then he goes to disappear, and Thor, and he's not too far. Thor gets it, and Jane flies in. Bifrost goes. Jane flies in, and then Gore and just disappears, and then bam, bam, bam. We are in front of eternity. And Thor looks up and he goes, Eternity? What are you planning? And he goes, no. This won't do to have you here. And he goes to, and then he stabs a Necrosword through, and that's when we get the whole Shadow Realm part. Valkyrie got abandoned there. No Valkyrie. It is just Jane and Thor. Okay. Valkyrie got left. I kind of wanted her to be there, but honestly,
it's better for just Jane and Thor. Let's be honest.
Yeah, because now we have no lightning bolt. The gods weren't a big help, and he kind of sees the plan of what Gore wants. And then Shadow Realm kind of appears. All these pillars come up, and he goes, I offered to let you live. Let me go to Eternity's Gate. And he goes, and he assumes that he's going to make the wish and wish for the gods to be killed. He's like, we can't let you make that wish. And Jane's all confused. And Thor kind of is sitting there. And Thor wrestled away with Stormbreaker, I should say. Breaks out, wrestles with him. He's got Stormbreaker. She's got Mjolnir. And he goes, if he gets through Eternity, he will kill all the gods. He doesn't know what his plan is. Okay. And Jane is he's explaining all this to her, Eternity is a magical being. And if he reaches her gates, he can make anything happen. Anything can become whatever he wants. And Jane's like, okay, then let's just disappear out of here. And all of a sudden, Gore goes, you didn't think I gave... And he pulls out 2 kids. And Thor goes, you said you gave back all of them, And he goes, and he just kind of shrugs, holding the 2 kids. Now, give me... it's the 2 kids that one of the little boy that was Thor will stop you. And then the little girl said, the mighty Thor will stop you. These 2 kids who, we now have a little connection with as the audience. Mm-hmm. And, they both go, Thor! And, it's kind of a cute thing because both of them are like, we're here for you, kids. We're here for you. And he shoves them back in the ground and causes the shadow pillars to come up. And he goes, fine. I guess you must die. Kind of he's just tired. He's like, I was willing to let you live, blah, blah, blah. So we get another epic fight. So now instead of Hercules and them, it's Thor and Thor are fighting together. They're working together. Finally, kind of gets the upper hand. And he has them pinned like he did in the first one. And, I did want to keep the idea of him just throws the axe away, and they both are using Mjolnir together. So they'll just going bink, 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 bink. They're crossing. Finally hits Mjolnir away, pulls them apart. He's sitting there, and he goes and he looks at Jane. And again, he's hearing the whispering, and he goes, oh, you're sick. And he gets closer, and he goes, you're a lot like me. You need this, don't you? And because we just see Mjolnir just flying throughout eternity, she's not really with him. And all of a sudden, we kind of see her get looking kind of sick. And then the farther it gets away, all of a sudden, we see the armor start falling, hair falling out. We're seeing the transition a lot differently now. And Thor's like, Jane, what's wrong with you? And he goes, and Gore starts laughing. Oh, you did. He doesn't know. Oh, now this is wonderful. And he goes, Thunderer, you wish to watch the woman you love die. Because again, he's like, we're hearing this like thing whispering. And he goes, give me the axe, and I'll let you help her, and you can go about your merry way. Let her keep Mjolnir. And let her live. And Thor's like, we can't let you do that. And we see like, you know, Jane's now trying to call him back. They're trying to call Mjolnir back to her, and he keeps blocking it with shadow stuff. It gets even closer, and he bings it away, you know. And then finally, and I do kind of want to make this a shot because he's such a strong god. He doesn't hold it, but he grabs it at one point, falls, and he just holds it, and then he just stabs it through, like the Necrosword. He just stabs it through the little handle, the little loopy loop. Mm-hmm. I know it's kind of cheesy, but he just stabs it through because it's unbreakable.
Yeah.
And he just stabs it through, and now we have it just sitting there like trying to get to her, and it's so close. And, you know, and Jane's trying to call it so much, but she's just getting weaker and weaker. And Thor's trying to, like, we see it like trying to go to each god, like, like a little puppy. And then, and he's choking Jane. And he goes, and he gets up in his face, call the axe. Do it. And you can have her, have the children, and you get what you've always wanted, a family. Go on. Do it. And he goes, that's what we both want, isn't it? And anyway. So finally, you know, Jane is dying. Jane's crumbling up. And finally Thor calls the axe and picks it up. And Gorr just summons the Bifrost with all four of them and sends them back to New Asgard. He goes, thank you. And bam. He didn't break his promise and just sends them.
Okay.
And all of a sudden we see all four of them landing there, and Jane tries to crawl toward Mjolnir, and just like how you said, she's too weak to pick it up. And Thor's like, Jane? And then it just breaks to them in the room. And they are talking, and he goes, I can't believe you didn't tell me. She goes, when was I supposed to tell you? You know, they're talking, she's really weak. She's like, when on earth was I supposed to tell you this? How was I supposed to tell you this? You know, and this is where I would want their reconnection to appear. I want them talking, apologizing. You know, they build this connection, and then he was like, we need to work together. And he goes, no, you stay here, and you stay here, you're sick. And she, you know, she's gotten a little better. She calls Mjolnir. Bam. She's Mighty Thor. She goes, as long as I have this, I'm fine. I'll be okay. And he goes, but he won't always. He's like, Mjolnir can't always be there for you. We've seen this. And she goes, he's been there longer than you have. And, you know, deep cut. And Thor's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry that I wasn't there. Like, everything he said, he's like, I just didn't know. I was tired of letting you down. And she starts crying, like, you know, you never let me down. Blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, I just needed a scene that they set this aside. This is the lowest point. This is them coming together and realizing that they both wanted to work so hard. Then finally we get the little cutesy kiss, and Thor agrees, fine. But the second I get Stormbreaker,
you go home.
You go home. You know, and she goes, deal. goes, shall we? Shall we? And they both grab a hold of Mjolnir, and up, and away. They both work together to fly. He's like, brace yourself. It's going to be quite the trip. But Thor can fly pretty fast. He really can. The Bifrost just helps him. It's a lot.
The Bifrost is more of a portal than anything.
Yeah, but Thor can fly. Anyway, so shows Gore sitting there with Stormbreaker, and he is just breaking down the gate. And then finally, it breaks through. And he goes, finally. And he lets go of Stormbreaker. And he's about to... Oh, how did I do this? Because I do want, like... Because he's like, the second I get Stormbreaker, I let you go. And she's kind of like, maybe. Like, you know, kind of like doesn't give a full reply. And then finally, like, thunder appears in the sky and lightning strikes. And holy crap, two Thors land together. Stormbreaker goes in his hand. And he goes, go home. She goes, I told you we work together. And Gore is about to walk through, and he's like, and he looks at the door, looks at them, looks at the door, looks at them, because he's like, I am so close. But he's nervous that if he walks through, they'll just come in. He just doesn't want, you don't want three crowds in there, okay? He goes, leave, let me have this. I don't want to kill you. Let me go through eternity. You know, and they're like, no, you must be stopped. You've done too much, blah, 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 blah. You know, big, all heroic thing. And he's like, fine, let's get this out of the way. You know, round two. You know, and now they're both working together. The gate's already open, so Thor gets to use Stormbreaker. They're just tag teaming. They're doing great. Hitting, fighting. We're getting the epicest fight scene ever. You know, we have the creatures coming in, and they are just laying waste to the creatures. And see, that's going to be important in a second. I just zoned out again. Okay, so epic fight's going, and very similar to the movie. They're fighting, and they're working together. Thor is sitting there with Gore, oh yeah, I remember why. Okay, sorry, I was trying not to steal Tim's ending again. I was like, what did I want to do? Because I loved your ending. I'm definitely going to edit a bunch of this because I keep pausing way too much.
You're good.
So, epic fight scene. Very similar. Thor is sitting there with Gore, and he goes, they're fighting face to face, and he goes, why? He's like, what is your wish? Like, he's like, what is your plan? Like, they just need to know what he's been trying to do. And Gore goes, it's no concern of a god, and he just flies him off. Thor gets knocked down. He's about to run Thor through. Jane gets up, gets close fighting. They're both exhausted. Gore gets the upper hand of Jane and stabs her through. Okay, and Thor has seen this scene too many times, screams. And, you know, blood's starting to come, because this is the Necro Sword. This kills gods, so Jane is... We see that once again, she's getting kind of weak again, because she just got stabbed with the Necro Sword. You know, she kind of starts kind of laughing, blood's coming out of her mouth, and Gore's really confused. And she looks back at Thor, and she's like, I love you. And does the call, and just calls lightning down, hits them both, and transitions back to Cancer Jane, and the sword has broken. You know, because of the transition, the sword got destroyed in the transition. That's just a lot of power. Gore pulls it out of her as she's in cancer mode, and she still has a sword in her. She pulls it out, And as he pulls it out, we see that it's just kind of just disintegrating. And now we see Gore is kind of having a Jane effect. And he stumbles towards Thor, and Thor looks at him, and just Thor beelines it for Jane. And he gets to Jane, and this is it. And he's just like, I told you to leave. I told you. He's just so angry. And she goes, it's okay. I shouldn't have been able to rely on Mjolnir. It gave me a little bit more time. It gave me time to be a hero. But most of all, it gave me a second chance to see you again. Have a little kiss. And she disintegrates like all the other gods because she became the mighty Thor.
Oh wow.
And he just, and then bam, Stormbreaker goes into his hand, and he goes into that doorway, and we see Gore, and he's like, Gore! And we see him just crying. And he turns around and he goes, leave me this. And as he turns around, we see that his daughter is standing there. And Thor's like, what? And he goes, I wanted gods to die, but not as much as I wanted my daughter back. And after that sword was gone, all I wanted was to see my daughter's face again. And he like falls over, and the little girl's like, Daddy, Dad? And he's like, my sweet little, like just having this tender moment, complete mirror of the goodbye that Jane and Thor got. And he goes, be good. I love you. And this poor little girl is like, Daddy, like just so confused. And very similar, Gore also lights up and disappears. Because even though he had the Necrosword with him, when he got rid of it, you got to remember he was a devout and strong man and a loving father. And
I like to think that the Necrosword basically made him a god.
Yeah. And he also disappears. I do kind of want it to be kind of more of a black mist.
Maybe black fading into gold.
Yeah, something like that.
Could be kind of cool.
And then we have Thor and this little girl staring at each other. And the scene goes to black. And then he goes, she was mighty. The mighty Thor meant everything, and she meant the world to me. And I'll remember her name, and I'll remember her. And we, as Asgard, will cherish what she did for us. And it shows all the kids coming back. It shows Valkyrie, like, hugging Thor. And then it shows this poor little girl all alone. And we see all the Asgardians look at her. And then it shows them slowly, like, gather around her. And it just kind of gives us the fact that the Asgardians are going to take care of this God Butcher's daughter. And then it says, like, 3 months later, and it shows Thor kind of walking up to the spot where Mjolnir was. And it shows him putting Mjolnir back on that pedestal where Jane found him, leaving it there. And then that's when we see the statue, and he says, in remembrance of the mighty Thor. And people are like, Thor, what do we do? And Valkyrie's behind him. What do we do now? Mighty Thor. And he kind of goes, I don't want to be called that anymore. I think Thunderer will do fine. And then that's the end of the movie.
That's a good ending. That's a solid ending. Lots of emotion. It's good.
I wanted this movie to be emotional. And again, I get kind of, because I really do try to I change the movies a lot, as we've seen, and I do need to get better with how I do it. It's going to be a lot of breaking apart. But yeah, I really wanted this movie to be emotional. I want it to be more powerful. And it could end with a cutscene of maybe Jane in the afterlife. I really did like the idea that you said of Gore appearing as a watcher. But for the most part, I really wanted the big thing to be that Gore was killing gods, yes. But once that Necrosword was gone, and because he still had, I'm not saying he got completely, like it wasn't him the whole time. It was just a dark version of him, very angry. But once that sword was gone, he had a whole other purpose, and he walked through that gate and made that wish, and he brought his daughter back. And I didn't want it to be all cheesy. Like, I want it to be a sad little girl. She just lost her dad, but the Asgardians would be like, we can do this.
Yeah.
They have no anger toward her. You know, I really like a scene of like her, like, I just want my daddy, you know, and all the parents are just watching her cry as they're holding their kids. And one mom, oh, that's right. I wanted the kids to go up and hug her. And then the parents come in. And it just kind of leaves that. And during the 3 months later, we see her in class with all the little Asgardian kids raising her hand and happy. You know, just, we don't need too much information about Gore's daughter, but that she is going to have a happy life and being taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, the big point, one of the points that was made in Thor Ragnarok was, like, right at the end, right, was that Asgard is a people, it's not a place, right? And so being able to take Gore's daughter in and make her a part of Asgard, I think that's important.
Yeah.
I like that.
Very forgiving. They've really learned to be more open because of the example Jane brought.
Mm-hmm.
She was helping Asgard warm up to Earth because a Midgardian, a Earthling, became their hero.
An Earthling became one of their gods.
Yeah, and so they could learn to be better and be more open. I really wanted them to be like, we don't trust nobody. But then this outsider becomes Jane, shows him love. They love Thor again. And in the end, the mighty Thor was going to be the hero that they would all remember. So,
yeah.
But I did want one cutscene to be Hercules mourning his father. Shows them like a reverse thing of Zeus's mural, thing. And I kind of want it to be Hercules was kind of blaming Thor.
Okay.
Not a lot, but just kind of like, this is Thor's fault. Or just the hint that Hercules would become something that we see more. So, because I really wanted Hercules to be there for a reason. I did want Zeus to die, not like tease that he died. I just felt like this movie, again, could have been done way better.
I agree. And I mean, that's why we're doing this.
And I kind of feel bad that I just kind of dropped Korg and dropped Valkyrie. And I promise that, again, this is just me. I'm not going over like dialogue completely. And of course, they'd have more scenes.
But like the general gist of the story doesn't really need them.
Yeah. Oh, I did want Valkyrie to be with one of the Amazonian women at the end of the movie.
Okay.
So, gotta make that clear.
All right.
I wanted her to have someone who she could relate with, because she probably knows all the Asgardians. She's not going to build a relationship with someone. So I wouldn't mind if her falling in love with someone from Omnipotent City. So probably, and I think an Amazonian would be perfect for a Valkyrie.
I would agree. I mean, their lifestyles are the same.
Yeah, very similar. So, but yeah, that's my take on Thor: Love and Thunder.
I like it. That's a good take. I like it.
Tim, The sirens are here. What'd you do? You gotta turn yourself in.
Sorry.
It's the silly
bad.
goose police. You gotta turn yourself in. Well, did you ever think of anything for next week? You still thinking about it?
Still working on it.
Still working on it. All right.
Still working on it.
Well, with that being said, Tim, thank you for listening to my pitch.
Yeah. Thanks for giving it. That was a good pitch. I liked it.
I hope. I'm nervous that I was just rambling on, but it was a long day. I was tired. Again, we're only less than a month into this, so we'll get better. But yeah, well, thank you all for listening. And next week, Tim will be leading us, and we'll see what happens then.
Yeah, we'll see.
So until then, see you later, pitches.